Is up, guys, and welcome back to Anything But United. Today's going to be a bit of a different one. I've obviously got Henry with me and James. Guys, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. All good, thanks.
So, as I said, today's going to be a bit of a different one. As we learned yesterday, Diego Maradona passed away at the tender age of 60. A massive tragedy for the world over, really. I know he had a massive impact in Argentina, and they've got 3 national days of mourning there. I'm really not surprised. A fantastic footballer, a great bubbly person from what everyone said as well. Obviously, he had his problems off the field, but then again, he's one of the greatest footballers ever. I think you have a right to do that if you're in that situation. He was a man who kind of allowed a whole nation to believe again after they've been through a lot of struggles. And I mean, it's just a massive shame, and no one could predict it. Obviously, we knew he'd had an operation about 3 weeks back, and they said he recovered from it okay. So, but then again, you never know what's going to happen. So I'll come to you first, Henry. What are your thoughts on him?
No, it's just obviously really sad news. Obviously, 60 isn't that old. It's very young for sort of Maradona to go. Over the years, sort of medical trouble. I know, sort of 2004, I think he was admitted to hospital with an overdose. And over the years, we've all heard about sort of his, quote unquote, sort of struggles. But it did come as a surprise. Obviously, as you say, 3 weeks ago, sort of we heard that he'd had this operation on a brain bleed. Thought apparently he was recovering well from that, and then sort of this news comes out of the blue. Really sad news. Sort of shook me when I read it, to be honest. Just quite surprised. Yeah, it's just really sad. Really, obviously a magnificent player. Some of the things he did over the years, specifically, sort of in Naples for Napoli, where he sort of inspired a city that felt as if it was almost detached from Italy, sort of politically. I'd struggle to compare it to anywhere in England, really. They sort of felt as if they were completely detached from the country, sort of seen as this sort of horrible poverty-stricken sort of place, and then you get this man, sort of Maradona, arriving, sort of a saviour almost for the city, and takes them obviously to a couple of Scudettos from a side that was pretty average beforehand as well. And obviously, what he did for Argentina, obviously 86, magnificent, probably one of the best individual World Cup campaigns by a player ever. Just magnificent. Technically, you can talk about him all day. Magnificent, just on the ball dribbling, sort of picking a pass. He wasn't all about scoring goals, but he did good numbers in that sense as well. But then obviously his aura and his personality was a completely different thing altogether as well, which sort of made him even better. He was 5'5", but he carried the aura of someone much bigger, and his sort of personality on the pitch sort of inspired teammates around him and sort of frightened opposition to a massive extent as well. Really sad news, but yeah, what a magnificent player, and I can't sort of pour in tributes enough for him.
James, what are your thoughts?
Well, how do I follow that up? Do you know what I mean? It's probably the perfect tribute to him. I'm sad I never got to see him play live. Would have been nice as well. Obviously, going into a journalism career, would have been nice to interview him one day, or just be in the same room as him. So I'm a bit upset I'll never get that opportunity. But yeah, I just like Henry said, for a lad with such a small stature, he really was a fighter, wasn't he? Just a proper shithouse at times, and I think that's what made him so great. I remember, recently at the World Cup where he was sticking middle fingers up to opposition fans out of pure passion. The Barcelona Atletico Bilbao, I believe it was a Copa del Rey final, where he just flying kneed someone in the head and started a full brawl. It was never not entertaining, was he? Do you know what I mean? It's undoubtedly one of the best players we will ever see. It goes a long way when it's in Argentina, he's regarded higher than arguably the best player ever in Messi. So, but just to have 3 days mourning over a player who's not royalty or anything like that as well. Well, he did have a throne at his last managerial job, didn't he? But I don't think you can quite class that as a royal. But yeah, sad, very sad. But it does make me worry a little bit for other players as well. The way Gascoigne's going and everything. I think if Maradona's gone, then a couple of others could follow, which is another sad thing as well.
Well, I think obviously he had issues with his lifestyle, but then again, every time he spoke about his lifestyle, he just said he wanted to enjoy himself, he wanted to have a bit of fun, and personally, I can't knock him for that. It's his life; he can enjoy himself. I remember we had the same situation with George Best at one stage when, even on TV, they were saying, you know, why do you drink? And he's saying, because I enjoy it, because I want to drink. If I wanted to stop, I'd stop, but I want to drink and I want to have fun for the rest of my life. I know 60 is a really young age to go, but those 60 years were, you know, the best years you're going to get as a player and as a kind of party boy, really. And obviously he was managing at the time. Yesterday, obviously, he's still manager of Gimnasia in Argentina, which is a tragedy in its own right. That the players, you know, he offered to resign last year, and the players didn't want him to. They refused to allow him. So that's the massive impact he's had. I think the bigger impact is Argentina, maybe Napoli as well. Obviously, Napoli they won their only titles with Maradona in the side, but you know, Argentina was a different country when he was playing. You obviously wasn't there, but you know you can see it from the videos that the impact he had. 3 days of mourning says it all about how much of a quality personality he was. What did you guys make of him as a player? Obviously, you know, we didn't see him live, but what have you guys seen? Henry, I'll come to you first.
I think, you know, there's a lot to pick out about him, really. You know, comparable, I think, only in this era to Lionel Messi. Obviously, it's an obvious comparison to make, perhaps a lazy one. You know, they're both Argentine. They've both got a small stature. Obviously, Maradona had a lot more bulk about him. And obviously, his personality was a lot different. I'd say Maradona was much more of a leader than Messi was. But on the ball, they were quite similar, I thought, in the way they sort of moved. I'd say Maradona's right foot was actually probably better than Messi's right foot is. But I think Maradona was probably a bit more 2-foot. You see a lot of goals where Maradona was happy to use his right. Like Messi, loved the dink. I think this is going off sort of off what I've seen of him. Obviously, I didn't watch him live every week, but loved the dink. So a lot of flair to his game. You know, you see so many clips of him doing Rabona crosses and stuff like that. He just had that aura and that personality about him to sort of pull those sort of things off. Like Messi, small and but generated a lot of power with his left foot as well. So when he did shoot, it was always like a rocket with his left peg. But yeah, that's about it really. But his passing as well, obviously, pick out a massive amount of assists and was magnificent at playmaking as well. He was so well rounded, Maradona. In the air, he'd get a decent amount of headers as well, similar to Messi, really. Not his main attribute, but something that he was still sort of capable of doing. On the ball, I'd say he was a lot stronger than Messi. But yeah, I'd say that that's the only way I sort of have to compare him to. And that might be a bit of a lazy comparison. But yeah, I'd probably say in our current era, that's probably the best comparison to make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. James, what do you think?
I think the beauty of him was that he perfectly transferred his love for life and his party boy energy onto the pitch as well. He clearly was at his happiest when there was a ball at his feet, and he showed that. You see the clips of him warming up. He was there to have a good time. If he played well, that was a bonus, but he was genuinely just there to enjoy it. And I think, you know, we've only really seen that with players like Ronaldinho in later years, where their playboy lifestyle out of the pitch really corresponds to it on the pitch, where you genuinely enjoy watching them and you look forward to everything they ever do. But yeah, like Henry said, it goes to that leadership thing as well, that I think that made him, you know, twice the player he was. Because you see with what Messi's done with Argentina, he hides, doesn't he? And generally, I know he's not got the best team around him, but he seems to really struggle on the big stages with his country. I know he took him to a World Cup final, but you know, in terms of national teams, there wasn't a great standard then, so it's probably one of the easier World Cup finals to get to. And you know, after I believe he missed a penalty in a final of a Copa America and lost, and then he decided he was going to retire from international football. That's something that Maradona would have never done. His strength of character would have shone through, and they'd have gone again. But yeah, just an inspiration to many, I imagine, to have that much of an impact on your country. And you know, he didn't even play his best years in his country. That just goes to say, oh, you know, he spent most of his career in Europe, and yet he's still loved by everyone in South America. So, you know, what more can you say?
Right, we're gonna move on obviously on the same subject, but move on slightly to something probably even more negative. And I didn't really want to do this, but we've been forced into doing it really by the English media yet again. This whole, I can't stand the papers anymore. That's what I can say. I just can't stand them. Everything they do seems to be bitter, snarky, seems to attack people. It's completely unnecessary. So I believe it was the Star this morning, where they put a headline about VAR in with Maradona's handball. I can't believe it again. Why on earth are people doing this at this time? You know, it's so soon after. Just pay your respects and accept that it happened. Also, Peter Shilton has now come out and made a comment that he'll never forgive Maradona. Peter Shilton, fantastic keeper, bitter, vindictive, snarky, horrible person. You don't say that after someone's died. It is just not on. So I'll come to you first, James. Actually, James, what do you think of these headlines? Because we keep seeing it over and over again. It's doing my head in.
Well, I've only seen the Daily Star, and I'll put it up in sort of post production, the actual front page. But I've just got it up on my phone. So obviously the headline is "Where was VAR when we needed it most?" Bear in mind, one of the greatest players of our generation, well, not our generation, in history, has just passed away, and you go back to the one time that he somewhat let himself down, and then the subheading is "Maradona in the hands of God, age 60." I think that's a little bit insensitive.
Yeah.
And then the actual text begins, the second greatest footballer to ever grace this earth, Argentinian forward Diego Maradona, died last night of a heart attack, age 60. Yes, he was a cheat, but what a bloody amazing cheat he was. That's at the start of like that. That's how they have recognised his life. You know, we're taught at university, you put the most important information at the top of a story.
Yeah.
So they feel to point out the fact that he was a cheat is more important than any of his other accomplishments that he ever achieved. It's just disrespectful, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's bad enough berating someone when they're alive, like they're doing with Rashford at the minute, and Greenwood and Sterling. But you know, for a player who's contributed so much to the game and changed the way that we play the game completely, because that's what he's done, hasn't he? He really brought that flair in. Probably the 70s Brazilians teams and Maradona were really influential in helping bringing flair into the football. But you know, to just discredit everything he's ever done in his career and just label him as a cheat from the offset just shows you everything you need to know about the way journalism's heading.
Yeah, I'll come to you, Henry. I saw some of your comments on Twitter earlier about the situation. What do you make of what the papers have done this morning?
Yeah, I think you know, you see sort of the headlines around the world. L'Equipe, or however you pronounce it, the French sort of paper pen respects with a really simple, just sort of tribute to him with just a photo of him, and just obviously I know that's a sort of football exclusive paper. I believe I'm right in saying that, but so they're obviously going to focus on it more, and they're allowed to sort of keep it simplistic. And obviously in England, obviously you can't just sort of give an entire front page. I think that you're unlikely to think that of a national paper, obviously, especially when you've got so many political issues going on as well. So I wasn't expecting anything like that. I think the Daily Star one is definitely the weirdest. I don't know why they mentioned VAR. I don't really get it, if I'm honest. I don't really sort of get the thing. Obviously, I understand they're referring to the hand of God, but why are we going back over something that happened? What was it? How many years ago is that? That's 30, what's it, 36 years? Am I right in saying that? I think I'm right in saying that.
Like that.
Yeah. It's just sort of absurd, but that's 34 years, isn't it? Sorry, maths is all over the shop there. But yeah, the Star one mentioned in VAR is the strangest to me. The other ones, you know, you think when Maradona dies, they were always going to use some sort of wordplay. It's just typical tabloid, and there was always going to be this sort of wordplay. So I don't think some of them are actually too disrespectful. It's just a bit predictable and a bit shoddy, really, isn't it? Sort of using the hand of God line. The Star one is what I've got the most problem with, if I'm honest, because it doesn't really. It struggles to pay any respect on that front page, from what I can see. You know, it is focusing vastly on VAR. I mean, just looking at them here now again. I mean, the Sun sort of they use the word nemesis. I mean, it's nice. I can see why, obviously, at the time we weren't there for it. I can see why people were infused at the time. When someone cheats, and he did cheat, he did cheat. It's bending the rules. He did do that. When someone does that against your nation, you're obviously going to be massively frustrated, especially in a World Cup in which there was so much sort of hope for England. Whether we would have gone on to win it anyway, I'm really not sure about that.
But just to butt in, sorry, can you imagine if it was the other way around, and in that game Lineker had handballed it into the goal and we'd gone through in the World Cup? Can you imagine?
If he died,
he'd probably be Sir Gary Lineker at this point, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I said the exact same yesterday. I mean, you just can't fault him for it, and that's why I find Shilton's line of sort of reasoning just baffling. I don't know what Shilton's got stuck up his arse, but he seems absolutely fuming about it still. Get a grip, honestly. It's been bloody years, Peter. Like if it was you, I mean, Maradona said it himself. I think he said years ago that it sort of, if Peter Shilton himself had a ball go over the line, as if Shilton's going to the ref to say that went over the line.
Yeah, exactly.
No chance. Absolutely no chance. But yeah, no, it's a bit baffling. No, to be honest, the Star's the one I find the most problem with, if I'm honest, and it's just a bit below the belt, really, isn't it? But I think they were always going to go with this hand of God line, especially in England.
I'm actually in disbelief. Someone's died, and the way I always put it is that's someone's dad, that's someone's brother, that's someone's cousin. He's a family guy, and the only thing you can think to do in the morning is attack him for what he did 34 years ago. 34 years ago, the comments I've seen that he was a cheat, he was this, he was that. Let it go. Let it go. It happened 34 years ago. If you spend the rest of your life thinking about that, you are going to have a very, very crap life. Let it go. Accept that it happened. Worse things have happened. A lot worse things have happened in football. It was a handball, and I know it knocked our nation out of a World Cup, which we probably wouldn't have won anyway. The thing people fail to mention is that second goal, where he absolutely ripped our team in half on his own. A player who is one of the greatest ever ripped our team in half, and everyone's going, "Oh, it was the first goal that did it." No, it wasn't. It wasn't. The reality is, if he didn't score that, he'd probably score another one because he just could. He was that good. He could do what he wants. So let it go. It's happened. Get over it. Accept it, and stop attacking people. For God's sake. I'm gonna go on to something ever so slightly different. How do you guys feel? I'll come to you first, Henry. How do you guys feel about going into journalism when this shit is happening now?
I think obviously it's not great, but there's almost a positive side to it because there's a feeling that we can make a change. I think that's sort of the only positive side to it, is that you can sort of, there's an industry there to tap into, and a generation now in which we've got an opportunity to make a change, which I think is a positive thing. I think that's the only way you can sort of spin it around and be positive about it. But you're so right, and I know you guys have spoke a lot about it in previous weeks. Sort of just the treatment of Marcus Rashford and the comparisons to Phil Foden. And there's so many different articles over the years, just sort of like racial microaggressions, which you can't sort of, this is different than the Maradona thing, really. This is just sort of a demonization of something that happened years ago. But in general, I think, it's an interesting time for journalism. I say that it's just trying to be as positive as possible in that, we've got a chance now to make a change. But yeah, there's a lot there to be sort of scoffed at, really, and a lot of things that do need change, and hopefully sort of the next generations can go and do that.
James, what do you think?
Well, up a couple of weeks ago, I put a tweet out about it, and Henry obviously responded to it, and we had a little discussion over Twitter about it. And I was saying how bleak it is, the world that we're going into, and you've got to look at it as a positive, like Henry said. You've got to look at it as we're the ones that can make a change and will be recognised for that. But I think it's disgraceful that it's got this far in that we're the ones that have to do it. The times are changing so rapidly, and modern journalism just isn't keeping up, is it? It's very much stuck in the 80s, where it's perfectly acceptable to victimise a person and just bully them in public, and that's not even bringing into the fact that it seems like it's mostly racially aggravated as well. But yeah, I think there is a pressure on us now to change it, because it can't go on like this. We are going to see it's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about. But you see with like Caroline Flack, that just shows you what media, like bullying in the media, can do.
Yeah.
But it's down to us, because we will lose more people due to it if it carries on. But it's a challenge that we're all going to cherish and that we're all going to embody, hopefully. I can only speak for us three. I don't know about everyone else, but I imagine everyone's on a very similar wavelength. But yeah, I think just the fact that it's got this far, and the fact that the pressure is all on us and it hasn't been sorted beforehand is disgraceful, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is a bit shit, really, for all of us. Right, on that more happy note, I guess, to a degree, we'll call it there. Yeah,
Henry, can I just ask the floor a general question to round us off about Maradona? Then keep it slightly positive.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll ask both of you. Where does he rank in your all-time sort of players list? Henry, I'll come to you first.
He is for a long time. I sort of put Pele third, perhaps a bit naively. Just sort of for me, Ronaldo and Messi are on another level. With all due respect to Maradona, and this debate is obviously it's hard to have. The day after sort of a man's obviously passed away, but I always put Pele third. But until I started learning more about Maradona, and then he was cemented as third best for me. And that's no disrespect to him. Obviously third behind Ronaldo and Messi are two people who have sort of put up ridiculous numbers over the years and just been absolute machines, sort of going toe to toe for well over a decade. But yeah, what he did at Napoli for me, I think, is just phenomenal. Almost sets him apart. And you think about the '86 sort of Argentina side, you struggle to give. I think you guys with me on this. You struggle to name another player in that squad. I mean, Budachaga, the striker, perhaps is one I could name. That's about it. I mean, it was the Diego Maradona show. It was an absolute carry job from him. Truly inspiring. And it was a similar story in Napoli as well. But yeah, for me, just what he did, his legacy, obviously, in the World Cup, perhaps an argument for him to sort of be one of the best World Cup players of all time, up there with Pele as well. But yeah, for me, he comes third.
Fair enough. Hennes?
I reckon second. And that's behind Cristiano Ronaldo. And I know people are going to have a bit of a natter about that, which is fine. I say that purely because of the international stage, what he's done on it. Both players have performed on the international stage. I believe Ronaldo is about to, he could break the record for the most international goals ever, I believe, soon. I think he's got like 10 more to go or something. So, and he'll achieve that. I have no doubt about that.
I think he's also very close to breaking the record for most sort of official competitive goals in history as well, isn't he? I think he's only like 30 off or something like
that. Exactly. So that's my point. That's why he cemented at the top for me. Club and country, did everything. He's a fantastic player and an athlete at his age to be able to do what he's doing, still carrying a Juventus side, is unbelievable. I'll put Maradona in second, and that's because of the World Cup win. The amount of impact he had. I've never seen a country so upset, I'll say, over the death of a player. Genuinely, it has been that big. The impact he had on football, he changed kind of the way that, we have the Maradona spin now, that the way that people do things, he changed it completely. Messi's obviously third, but that's only because of the international stuff. I know Messi's putting up fantastic numbers and stuff, but this year he's gone a bit missing because of his attitude, maybe, I don't know. But that's what sets Maradona apart. He could play in a team full of plumbers and he would still have as much fun as playing in front of 60,000 people for Napoli, or 80 or 100,000 for Argentina. That's what sets him apart for me. So there's no attitude issues there at all. He just loved his football. So, and I can't knock him for that. James, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to agree with Henry, because I think if we're talking purely the best footballer ever, I think Messi clinches second place. I'm putting Ronaldo as my go. I think he always, ever since he's been at United, he has been. I sort of drifted into believing that Messi was better because for a couple of years he was, but you know the last, certainly this season and maybe last season has just proved, you know, Messi's drop off has been astronomical. I think he scored 3 goals this year and they've all been penalties.
Yeah.
So you know he's not even the player he was last year, and he's 2 years younger than Ronaldo, and we're seeing that drop off. Whereas you know Ronaldo's still breaking records now. I think he was the first Juve player to score 5 goals in the first 5 games of a season, something like that. Yeah. So you know he's still going strong. So you know he's number 1, Messi's number 2. But yeah, like Henry said, it's no disrespect to put Maradona third because you're putting him ahead of a whole host of players. You know, you've got Pele, Johan Cruyff, Ronaldinho. You know, there's so many names beneath him that just prove how good he really was. And yeah, so I'd go third. I think it's in terms of likability, he's going to be way up the list. He's definitely higher than Messi, isn't he? But yeah, if we're talking in terms of like the ability-wise, the best player, I'd probably go with third. Yeah.
So I think after that more positive note, which it was, I think we'll end it there. Yeah, we obviously lost Maradona yesterday. I picked out a perfect quote and from Kurt Cobain, and it says, "It's better to burn out than fade away." And I think that epitomizes Maradona. He never faded off the radar. He was always there. He was always kind of passionate about everything. We always saw him in World Cups, and you know, even in the crowd, he was as passionate as he was on the pitch. So I think that epitomizes what he was about. So yeah, on that more positive note, I guess we'll end it there. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah,
thank you, mate.
Enjoyed it.
And we will see you next week. So yeah.